I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk.
Greetings. My name is Mario Sims. I'm senior pastor of Doulos Chapel. Doulos Chapel is located at 608 South St. Joseph Street, just a bit south of downtown South Bend. My wife and I bought Doulos Chapel, a 50,000 square foot facility on the Historic Registry back in June of 2013. Our vision then was to begin housing homeless people and providing shelter. We consider it a no-barrier shelter, meaning that someone could show up intoxicated and need a place to stay. And so we began doing that shortly after purchasing the church in 2013. In fact, the first resident arrived at the church prior to us completing any improvements or renovation. The church has sat vacant for 4 years and had been vandalized. We believed that it was our responsibility as Christians to care for the least of these. We have since began calling the homeless the invisible community. And that was based on a conversation I had with a young man by the name of Alex. Alex visited our church one day. We had an emergency warming center from December of 2018 until April 15th of 2019, where we would feed 50 people a day, thanks to places like Cultivate Culinary donating food and the food bank at Milford giving us food. We also have clothing on racks. We had blankets that came from various businesses that donated blankets and individuals. But this particular day, Alex came in. I was sitting at the sign-in desk. He signed in, and then he disappeared from my sight. A few minutes later, I noticed off to the right a gentleman in a button-down shirt and a sports jacket and a pair of slacks. And it caught my attention because I wondered, when did this business person or dignitary, whatever you want to title that, arrive? It turned out it was Alex. Now keep in mind, Alex had come in with a tattered winter jacket because it was winter. We began the emergency warming center in December and it didn't terminate until April. So it was some brutal weather during that time. Well, he had come in with a kind of tattered winter jacket and a backpack on. After he signed in, I didn't know because we were serving food, so I didn't know. I got distracted. Well, I noticed someone out of the corner of my eye on the right side, dressed like a businessman. I looked up and it was Alex, and I said, "Alex, you really look." He'd come in and found some clothes, went in the bathroom and changed them. And I said, "Alex, you really look sharp." And he said, "You think so?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "You know, when I dress the way I did when I come in, when I go downtown, it's like people don't see me. They don't want to see me." He said, "It's like I'm invisible. But when I wear this, people notice me." And it made me really think. And so we began saying that the homeless were the invisible people. They exist, they're real. But the many people who walk by them, they just ignore them. Well, my wife and I have been dealing with this community since September, actually, of 2013, when our first resident who lived in the church itself arrived. From that point through 2019 would have been actually through all of 2019 into 2020 up until April of 2020. We ended up housing 127 homeless people. 15 at one time. We were able to do it without any grants from city or county government. And we developed an understanding of who the invisible community is. And we developed, if you will, an expertise in being able to assist these people. Then it changed in May of 2020. We received a phone call from 3 activists who were at Monroe Street and Michigan at a city lot. It was about at 1 o'clock that afternoon, my wife and I were together in our pickup heading to the church, and we got a phone call from these three activists. They're on speaker. I answered, put it on speaker, and they said, "Pastor, could you come by the city lot at Monroe and Michigan? The South Bend Police Department is here, and they're going to demolish the homeless tent city that had been set up on the city lot at Monroe and Michigan." So my wife looked at me. The call was on a speaker, and she said, "Let's go." So it was only a block. When we got over there, it was a scene from Hollywood. That's all I can do. It looked like a movie set. On the left side of the city lot were about 40 to 50 police officers in riot gear. They had the batons and, all that type of equipment. In front of them were a large number of homeless. I'd say anywhere from 50 to 70 homeless people, and they were all agitated. They're agitated because everything that they own was in these tents that the city was preparing to demolish. So I went to Chief Crittenden, who I think was the uniform chief at that point, and I said, "Chief, could you give me a few minutes to talk to these people before you guys take any action?" He said, "Sure." So I went over, because we had been, this is 2020, and because we had ministered and housed and fed and clothed the homeless, as I talked to you about Alex, we knew many of them, and many of them knew us. So I was able to gather the homeless, the invisible community, and let them know that, hey, look, why don't we do this? Why don't you guys just gather your tents and move to church property? We'll figure this out. There had been one or two tent cities, one on Touch Street. There had been another one that was under the bridge, I think, on Main Street in South Bend that Mayor Pete Buttigieg had ordered disbanded. So there had been at least 2 or 3 tent cities before this particular tent city formed. So make a long story short, we were able to get the police to hold off. And they had, I think code enforcement had some kind of rubber tire tractor or loader. They were getting ready to smash their tents and just move them. And of course, they were the invisible community. They're people. It's like somebody getting ready to bulldoze your home. You can imagine. Well, everything they had, they carry on their back or put in their tent, which if they leave the tent, then it's not secure. Obviously, those items will be stolen, so they put them in a backpack. Make a long story short, we end up moving all the tents to our property. We had a meeting with the activists that had called me, and they assured me that within 72 hours that they would be able to find some other arrangements. We had Tent City for 61 days. In fact, it wasn't 72 hours. We had it for 61 days. And quite frankly, because we're a small, poor congregation, I didn't know how we would feed for these people, how we would care for them. And the outpouring of support from churches was just amazing. The churches began volunteering to come in and prepare food. The general population began, during this time, temperatures would reach 80 and 90. They would donate styrofoam toolers, and they would donate money to us so we can buy ice every day. There was one period we spent $50 a day on ice. Tents were donated. We had everything from one-man tents up to the tents being able to house and shelter 4 people. We quickly decided that we had to cap the tents at no more than 37 tents, because what was happening as word got out throughout the area and the region that we had Tent City, people were coming from all over. And at the end of the program, which is 61 days, it ended in July, I think. I'm not sure of the date, but we had housed 87 people in 37 tents. Total, not at one time, we had 87. I think the most we would have on the actual property would be 37 to 40 people in the tents. And we had tremendous help from churches. Pastor James McKinnis, Christ Temple Apostolic, donated porta potty. The Givens, their church donated, New Horizon Church donated 2 porta potties. we had a tremendous outpouring of businesses, families, husbands and wives, individuals that would bring food or order food. We had pizzas and hamburgers and just all type of food. So no one went hungry, no one without a tent, without a blanket, and it was really a great time for South Bend, showing their love and support. All the churches, all the organizations that came together to Doulos to help us. Unfortunately, from the time that we started Tent City, May, beginning of May, I'm not sure on the actual date, to the end, it was 61 days, so sometime from May to July. We had approximately 30 police runs. We met with Officer Keenan Lane, who is the South Bend Police Property Officer. And he sat and met with our board. We have a 501c3, which is separate from the church. So he met with our 501c3 board and advised us that there were a lot of complaints from the neighbors because of the activity. You know, when you have a large group of homeless in one place, people from the invisible community, many of them self-medicate. And when they self-medicate, they buy illegal drugs. And I mean, if you don't have a roof over your head, you're sleeping on a piece of cardboard or a tent. I can't imagine how traumatizing that would be. So they self-medicate. Some have psychological issues, and there's medicine involved there. And again, some self-medicate. But anyway, what we saw was it became a place, a location that attracted drug dealers. So we had to address anyone who was using illegal. We had a zero tolerance for illegal drugs and zero tolerance for violence. In any event, the majority of the 30 police runs, Officer Keenan Lane explained to us, came from residents calling the police to get the troublemakers out, people who would come onto the church property to try and go through the tents to steal or to do drugs or sell drugs. So in any event, 30 police runs. During the course of this, our church is located in the Monroe Park Neighborhood Association area, and we received no help from Monroe Park Neighborhood Association area. In fact, they were constantly calling the police and pressuring the mayor. I've got several news stories here. I have one that's June 25th, 2020. It's an AP story. And I'll read it to you. It says, the caption is South Bend Homeless Camp. Neighbors plead city to take action. People living near a South Bend church where the homeless have formed a tent encampment on the property are asking the city to shut it down. The Monroe Park Neighborhood Association is pushing for immediate action from the city, hoping Mayor James Mueller comes up with an alternative to the tents. The tent encampment first formed in early May at a city-owned empty lot and then moved onto the property of Doulos Chapel after the city had forced them out. Mueller at the time said he was looking to establish an emergency shelter funded by the city, but in an interview with South Bend Tribune on Wednesday, he said he had no progress report. The neighbors, of course, claimed that the neighborhood had changed dramatically when Tent City came in. She said that people staying in the tents hadn't caused problems, but she needed to call the police on people gathering in the empty building lot across the street. Margie File, secretary of the Neighborhood Association and an active member of the Catholic Worker House a block away, said the city must act quickly to find a solution. This is a systemic issue that really our neighborhood cannot handle by itself, File said. Our neighborhood is bearing a lot of the weight right now for an issue that really needs to be addressed by the whole city. Margie File, member of the Catholic Workers, secretary of the Neighborhood Association. Keep that in mind. I want to read you another news story written by Howard Duke, South Bend Tribune, July 31st, titled Homeless Camp Moves Again, but questions about his future and South Bend plans still linger. So homeless people living in a tent camp have moved for the third time this summer, but questions still linger about the future of the encampment and what action the city can take. Mario Sims, a few weeks ago, had offered to the homeless set up camp on Doulos Chapel property at 608 South St. Joseph. The summer started with the camp forming on a private lot as I told you, on Monroe in Michigan, near downtown. But after the property owner objected, it moved to a city-owned lot across the street in the 500 block of South Michigan. On May 26, the city ordered the tents removed, which prompted the move to Doulos Chapel. But after several weeks, Sims said the situation was placing a strain on his small congregation and asked those living in the camp to leave by noon Friday. Most did so by Friday morning, moving across the street in a parking lot of nearby strip mall that was formerly at the site of the Indiana Bureau of Motor Vehicles. But the latest move caused a new tension. That property owner, the property owner of what used to be the site of the Indiana Bureau of Motor Vehicles, Alan Bean, who lives in California, said he's frustrated and the situation has made it hard for him to find new tenants. The city is not doing anything to get them off my property, Bean said. He added that he understands homelessness is a complex problem and is willing to help, but he purchased the property believing the area would be stable. It goes on to say that James Mueller, the mayor, had previously said that downtown property owners had made it clear they don't want the former Salvation Army building in part of a city that already delivers most homeless services to house another permanent homeless shelter. Mueller said he also has said he's been able to find a service provider and operating it under the Housing First model, which immediately offers services regarding of drug or alcohol use, and approach Mueller favors. I want to stop here because that's an absolute lie. Doulos Chapel has on several occasions presented, remember we did no barrier housing, and what we try and do is get people, get them housed out of the cold and get them warmed up, get them clothes, get them food, and then start connecting them to places like Oak Lawn and employers. So we could get them into permanent housing. During Tit City, we were able to get 14 people employed and I think 12 people into permanent housing. Sister Clara Ross is the one that maintained those. But the mayor had never approached us about operating the Salvation Army building. We have the experience. For 8 years, this is what we did. Our housing received $0, not 1 penny from the city. When we ran our emergency warming center, we got zero money, although the Catholic Workers had an emergency warming center for 2 months. Ours was from December to April. We fed 4,500, served 4,500 hot meals, 50 people a day, zero money. The Catholic Workers at Our Lady of the Road was given $20,000 by the city to operate it in 2 months. So think about that. Earlier on Friday, one of the people at the encampment, RD, said he didn't know where he and his wife would go after leaving Doulos Chapel. RD declined to give his full name and said he didn't want to follow the people setting up camp across the street because of the violence he faced. I've been punched, I've been kicked, and I've been assaulted, and the same thing would happen if I go over there. He added that the attacks were not committed by people living in the tent city on Doulos, but outsiders. Another camp member, Gary Bryant, I know Gary is a veteran, said he lost all of his money in a rental housing scam before landing at the encampment. What am I going to do now? Bryant asked. I don't know. And then it goes on to talk about Margie File, secretary of the Neighborhood Housing Association, active member of Catholic Worker House, a block away, said the city must quickly find a solution. This is a systemic issue that really our neighborhood cannot handle. Okay, so you've seen how the neighbors have complained. In these two articles, I've mentioned Margie File, who is the secretary of the Neighborhood Association and who also is involved with the Catholic Workers who operate the Our Lady of the Road. I want to fast forward. In July 7th, 2020, the Biden administration appropriated $5 billion for emergency housing vouchers. 70,000 were awarded to approximately 700 housing authorities. City of Sacramento received 494 vouchers with the potential to receive more. This is separate from the billions of dollars that have been allocated for the Housing Choice Voucher, HCV. Anyway, So I want to give you back. Remember I said that one of the things that we discovered at Tent City, when you have large numbers of homeless, it becomes an attractive nuisance. Well, and you remember I said that the neighborhood association and those Catholic workers and volunteers out Lady of the Road who lived a block down the street from the church had vigorously complained about the city. Well, so what happens is Our Lady of the Road and the Catholic workers formulated a proposal and went to the county, and they initially received $500,000 for a program that you would house the homeless in hotels. We were never contacted to bid. This was a no-bid proposal. It was given to a program that was created by the name of Motels for Now. And they had received initially last year $500,000 to house the homeless in motels. A couple weeks ago, in Bill number 95-21, an ordinance appropriating monies for the purpose herein, specified for several departments herein listed of the St. Joseph County government, the American Rescue Plan. This organization, Motels for Now, operated by Sheila McCarthy, who is associated with Our Lady of the Road, received a total of $829,431.13. Now, it's appropriate that I left my phone on for a reason. There's a video I want to play, and then I'm going to have the studio show some pictures. I want you to listen very carefully as I play this video.
A South Bend homeless family now has to replace all of their belongings after they say someone threw a bucket of urine and fecal matter on their tent. It's a story you'll only see here on ABC 57. Good evening, I'm Brianne Pomerini. ABC 57's Jonathan Bailey spoke with that family. He's live on South Joseph Street to tell us what happened tonight. Jonathan.
Brianne, it's just a sickening story. The couple was displaced after Tent City got shut down. They were told they could come here to Duluth Chapel, but now they have to move again because someone threw human waste on their tent.
I thought we were in a better community. I thought we had better people.
It's a discovery that no one wants to make.
We were out getting something to eat, get a little volunteer. We come back to our little spot right here to find
the waste was allegedly from a neighbor who tossed buckets of excrement out of the window onto the tent below. Wayne Hubbard was headed to a meeting next door at Delos Chapel. He saw the incident and began recording.
My reaction was to keep everybody calm and make sure everybody can find out what she did, because I believe in it.
The mess has since been cleaned up, but for Clarence Ramon and his wife Tanya, the search is on for a new place to stay.
I have lung problems already. I can't be breathing in the ammonia smell from it. I can't. I just can't.
I went next door to try and speak with the homeowners, but there was no response.
And I have high anxiety and depression issues that did not set well at all with me, knowing that was all that I had.
Hubbard tells me it's incidents like this that show the importance of standing up for people in the community who may not have a voice.
And somebody's got to stand up and start attacking everything that's wrong. I'm just going to prove you don't need a suit to do it.
Now, this, I want to point out that this story, and you could go to ABC 57, I think the story aired on May 18th, and you could look at the story yourself. Now, the reason that I'm playing this is simply that you have a situation here where I told you about the $500,000 that was given out for the Motels for Now program. I told you that there was another $800,000, and I want to read $829,431.13. Of that, $338,443.13 was allocated. So you've got over $1 $1.3 million going to this Hotels for Now program. Now, I just read you, I'm shutting my phone off here so it won't interrupt us. I just read you the story, or I let you listen to the story. You need to understand, the lady who is the manager of the Motels for Now program is Sheila McCarthy. Sheila McCarthy is a woman that tossed 5 buckets of urine and fecal matter out of her window onto that couple. I was just absolutely outraged. If the studio can begin bringing up pictures, we got pictures from that day. Now, this shows where the tent is. There's a guy cutting the lawn next to the greenhouse. The fecal matter, if you can look up, and you'll see it I just want you to see the tent is on a church property. There's only about 2 feet right away to the house on the right. So the tent's on our property. If you can go to the next picture. These are the buckets of fecal matter. All of them was filled with fecal matter. Now, when Sheila McCarthy was asked why she tossed the fecal matter out the window, she admitted that she knew the tent was there, but she said she didn't want to carry it down the stairs and get it on herself, so she just simply tossed it. Those are the actual buckets. You can see they were filled with urine and fecal matter. That house had been vacant. She was renovating, and apparently some homeless people broke in and began going to the bathroom there. So she figured that she would retaliate against the people in the tent, even though they weren't the ones that did it. You can go to the next picture. This picture, I want to just leave it for a second. That's Tanya Herman. If you can imagine, her and her husband had just come back from lunch and discovered urine and fecal matter over. Remember I said that the homeless have all their possessions. They now, because it's on church property, they didn't carry their items with. They felt it was safe on church property. Well, it would have been, but except Sheila McCarthy, from her second floor window, tossed 5 full buckets of urine and human feces, knowing that their tent was below. She admitted that. Knowing that the tent was below, and she did it. Keep in mind now, she just got paid over $1.3 million to manage the Motels for Now program to house the homeless. Now, we can go to the next picture. Okay, again, this is a shot, and you can see the tent is clearly on. That's the church on the left. That's Sheila McCarthy's house on the right. Now, I want to make it clear, Sheila sold that house, and the lady that lives there had no involvement with this. It's a really nice lady with her son that lives there now. But you could see the first window above that little rounded bump out section. That's the window that they threw the fecal matter out. You could see, if you're going to throw it out, if you're going to just pour it out, you could have poured it out that window, but they threw it out. They threw it out onto these knowingly. I shouldn't say they, it was her. She admitted to doing that. If you could move on to the next picture. I don't know if we have another picture or not, so okay, we don't. Here's a story. If you want to go online and get it yourself, it's titled, Human Waste Thrown on Homeless Couple's Tent, posted May 17th, 2019 at 11:50 Eastern Daylight Time. And it talks about they were out getting something to eat. We did a little laundry. We came back to our spot right here to find it covered in feces and urine, said Clarence Herman, who was living in the tent. The tent was located in between at Doulos Chapel and a home on South St. Joseph Street. Herman and his wife had to throw out all their possessions because of the incident. And he goes on to say, I thought we were a better community. It makes us feel like less than people. The couple were given new tents and supplies thanks to donation from Fix It Forward, and there was a police report that was filed. Now, I attended the county council meeting where the county council decided to appropriate an additional $800,000 to Sheila McCarthy. This was on September 14, 2020. I highly suggest that you look at that video, because what you'll see at the beginning of the video, when they talk about the supporters, you'll see many people who are Catholic workers who identify with being volunteers with Our Lady of the Road, or being involved or affiliated with Notre Dame in one way, shape, or form. Margie File, remember, the Secretary of the Housing Authority and involved with Our Lady of the Road, who staffs the homeless, the Motels for Now program, including Sheila McCarthy, who threw 5 buckets of urine. Margie File, of course, was the one that repeatedly complained about the 30 police runs. When I talked to Officer Keenan Lane, the problem property officer who had came out and spoke to us about the 30 police runs, and he said that, Pastor Sims, the Monroe Neighborhood Association, when you guys had Tent City, had wanted your church declared as a problem property, which would have meant you would have been fined. But I refused to do it because the runs didn't originate. The trouble didn't originate on your property. It were people calling to get people to leave. He advised me at that time that the Motels for Now program, which is located in a motel just east it's on Lincoln Way, and the Motels for Now program, Officer Keenan Lane advised me, had 363 police calls. Now, let me recap here. When we had Tent City for 61 days, no Catholic worker helped us. Margie File never brought down a bottle of water for us. We never saw Sheila McCarthy. Of course, Sheila McCarthy probably wouldn't have showed up because the homeless people were still angered about what she did to this couple. But all they did was complain. They didn't help. They just said, we don't want this in our neighborhood. Well, they didn't want it in their neighborhood, but they sure had no problem putting it on the west side, which is where it's at right now, at a hotel on Lincoln Way, because they got paid $1.3 million. So it's not only not in my neighborhood, but we're going to get paid $1.3 million. And so what if we get 363 police calls? These are the people that were up in arms about the 30 police runs at the city. And at this hearing of the St. Joseph County Council on September 14th, I really suggest you go and watch the video. You'll see the Catholic workers and Our Lady of the Road staff for this program say that when it was at Tent City, they were terrified, they were afraid to let their kids out, it was so disruptive. But they totally ignored the 363 police runs to the place they're operating for the $1.3 million, right? Well, it's not only that. Because of our connections with the invisible community, we continue to get complaints about favoritism, about how there are people on the list, but they'll go and get people from their friends or whoever they want. We had a young lady that testified at the commissioners meeting, St. Joseph County Commissioners meeting yesterday, that she had no desire to be in a program, but she was picked up by one of the staff workers, Tracy Lilliard, for the Motels for Now program and brought to the motel program. Yet they tell us that there's a waiting list. So they'll selectively pick someone up. But to mention Tracy Lilliard, who's on staff at the Motels for Now program, in 2013, she made a false police report that there was a meth lab in our church. Doulos Chapel was completely unfounded. Completely unfounded. But so a lot of times what happens is to try and prevent anybody else from getting to the homeless housing hustle, they will try and throw mud on whatever program. So we're familiar with this Tracy Lilliard. In fact, we know Trust Pastor. The last day that we had Tent City, she showed up and protested, get this, that we shouldn't close Tent City. What kind of pastor and church is this that would close Tent City? Go figure, right? I'm going to read you a recent post that I made on my Facebook page yesterday. And all you got to do is go to Mario Sims' Facebook page. It's my picture. It's in Marine uniform. I'm a Marine veteran. Obviously, you can see that. And there's a picture of me as a pastor right below, and that's how you know it. So this is what I posted. What I'm about to post will anger some. I do not care. It is the truth of God. What I'm about to post will cause some of you to unfriend me. I do not care. I'm a man of God. I speak his truth fearlessly. Unfriend me. Sheila McCarthy, Our Lady of the Roads, manager of the Motels for Now program, tossed buckets of urine and feces on a couple's tent on Doulos Chapel grounds on May 17, 2019. That fact has not been challenged. She has never apologized. Now keep in mind, when the county council voted to give her an additional $800,000 on September 14th, we were there, and before they made the vote, I made them aware of the article, human waste thrown on the homeless couple's tent. Sheila was there. Did they say, hey, can we adjourn for 10 minutes while you talk to Sheila McCarthy and find out, is this true or not? She never denied it, and she never apologized, okay? They didn't care. They never asked. Do you understand that throwing human waste on any individual could be considered a crime, whether it's a state crime or a federal hate crime? They didn't care. They went ahead, voted 6-3 to give her the money. Let me continue reading here. Last year, the county gave Motels for Now around $570,000 of the CARES Act funding. Last week, at this meeting that I just talked about, September 14, 2020, you can go look at the video. You'll see me there explaining just what I'm explaining now. Last week, the county granted an additional amount over $800,000. The website for the South Bend Catholic Workers state, we are a community of Catholics inspired by the example of Dorothy Day. We feed and shelter the homeless, practice works of mercy, and oppose the works of war. Our Lady of the Road is part of the South Bend Catholic Worker. Margaret File is a director and volunteer of Our Lady of the Road. She is also an officer with the Monroe Park Neighborhood Association. Doulos Chapel is located in Monroe Park. File, Our Lady of the Road, and Catholic workers that lived in Monroe Park worked vigorously to shut the tent city at Doulos Chapel down because we had 30 police runs, 30. Problem property officer for the South Bend Police Department, Keenan Lane, confirmed when I spoke with him last week that the Motels for Now program had over 360 police runs. Doulos Chapel had 30. They complained. It was unsafe for them. They were afraid to let their kids play in the yard. But the program they run received over 360 police runs and complaints from surrounding businesses and neighbors. One county commissioner collected a petition signed by 21 businesses declaring they were scared to death, and it caused them to close the doors early because of the Motels for Now program. But it is not the Catholic Workers, Our Lady of the Road, or Monroe Park neighborhood. So not in our neighborhood, right? Not in our neighborhood. Hey, we got paid $1.3 million, and so what? 21 businesses and 360 complaints. Last week, I reached out to Bishop Kevin Rhodes of the Catholic Diocese of Fort Wayne, South Bend, detailing everything. No response. Oh, did I mention Sheila McCarthy, Our Lady of the Road, manager of the Motel for Now program, and a Catholic worker is gay? Yep, what the scripture says cannot be a gay Christian. Read the Bible or just unfriend me. I'm a pastor. I stand on God's word. Now, keep in mind, in the 8 years we've had the church, we've housed, fed, and clothed gay people. That's not the point. The point is she's portraying herself as this God-fearing Catholic, and the Catholics follow the Bible and Jesus' teaching. Jesus said marriage is between one man and one woman. The Bible at the beginning in Genesis said that he created them male and female. And of course, in Leviticus, we know what that scripture says about in Romans. Man laying with man and woman laying with woman. Read the Bible, just unfriend me. I'm a pastor. I stand on God's word. Take time to watch the county council meeting and listen as the Motels for Now staff and supporters speak of their love for Jesus. Quote Dr. King and speak of doing what is morally right. Then, as I spoke against the program, saying everything that I'm saying now, watch the video. They behave like some angry mob, saying, "You're lying, Pastor." There was a homeless man, a member of the invisible community, that had been pushed out into the street, and that's what I said, and he was killed, run over and killed. They were outraged, "You're lying." And Mike Hammond, who is the auditor, and that's a whole nother story, who was at the county council meeting today, immediately said, "You shouldn't defame these people." Well, Jesse Davis, who's an activist, met with one of the workers for the Motels for Now program after the meeting, and he said what they objected to was me using words that the guy had been pushed out in the street when he had been forced into the street. Officer Keenan Lane, in fact, verified that a man was hit and killed outside of this hotel. So that wasn't a lie. But apparently they were bothered by the truth, and you have to watch the video as they began shouting and being disruptive. In fact, County Council President Raphael Morton had to tell them, "Look, you need to calm down." But I was actually quite shocked that Mike Hammonds, who is not a member of the county council, he's a county auditor, began attacking me because I was speaking this truth. But you have to understand, there was an early article, I think in August, where Mike Hammond had said, "I'll resign from my job," because he is term limited now. At the end of this term, he can't run again. So he said at the end of, I'll step down now and run the program. Well, the problem is your wife is Lori Hammond, a member of the city council, and she voted on funding for various aspects of homeless housing. So that may be a bit of nepotism. And you should not be involved in this because it could be perceived as a conflict of interest. But who cares? I mean, right? It's the Catholic Workers and Our Lady of the Road. So anyway, last week I reached out to Bishop Kevin Rhodes of the Catholic Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend, detailing everything. No response. No response. So I again say, take time to watch the council meeting. You'll be sickened by all of the Catholic workers and members of the Our Lady of the Road and Margie File, and even Sheila McCarthy gets into the act and starts talking about how morally right and how they care about the beloved community. But you throw poop and pee. I mean, 5 buckets. And you never apologized, and you never denied, all while you're collecting $1.3 million in 2 payments. This is wickedness. Christians don't do things like this. Christians repent. This is wickedness. These people worship money while they're pimping Christ. This is, the pictures you saw. Think about the picture you saw. Tanya was standing there in tears as she sees her meager possessions covered in poop and pee in her tent on church property. I'd suggest you do 2 things. If you're offended as I am, I would write the county council and tell them you're offended. Your money, $1.3 million, is from the CARES Act and from this the American Rescue Plan, ARP of 2021. That's where all money that either the state, local, city, county government get, federal government get, comes from you. It's your taxpayer money. Is this how you want your taxpayer money spent? I mean, the reality, the reason that I'm taking this issue up is because I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian. And I want to read some scripture here. Take time. We got about 15 minutes left. I want to read you some scripture. I don't know. I don't understand how people can say that they're Christians, and the Catholic workers say they're Christians. Let me read to you Luke 11:39, and Luke 11:30. And please understand, I'm not angry at anyone. I'm not. I just find that this is very hypocritical. That all these people are supposed to be Christians. Margie File, the Catholic workers, Our Lady of the Roads, Sheila McCarthy. No one has said Sheila should resign or we should get out of this program because not only is it bad optics, but it makes you look like a hypocrite. So in Luke 11:39, it reads in this way. Then the Lord said to him, now then you Pharisees clean the outside of your cup, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You are foolish, you foolish people. Did not the one who made the outside make the inside? But now as for you, what is inside you, be generous to the poor, and everything will be clean for you. Woe to the Pharisees, because you give God 1/10 of your mint, rue, and all kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God. You should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. I want to read also Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 6. See, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. We should be imitators of Christ. I don't know under what circumstance you could ever say that Christ would throw not one, but 5 buckets of urine and human feces on a human being. That's the lady who run this program. That's the lady who's supported by Margaret File. That's the lady who's supported by the Catholic workers and Our Lady of the Road. Think about that. Think about that. I want to read Jeremiah verse 8:6, forgive me. Chapter 8, verse 6. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 6 reads in this manner, I have listened intently, but they do not say what is right. None of them repent of their wickedness, saying, what have I done? Each pursues their own course like a horse charging into battle. Even the stork of the sky knows her appointed seasons, and the dove and the swift and the thrush observe the time of their migration. But my people do not know the requirements of the Lord. And it goes down to say, it talks about they practice deceit. And then in Jeremiah 6:11, they dress the wound of my people as though it was not serious. Peace, peace, they say, where there's no. Remember, they said I read you from their website, they oppose war and they believe in peace. And it says, are they ashamed of their detestable conduct? No, they have no shame. These people have no shame. This is disgusting. These are not Christians. These are pimps. These are people who are just pimping the homeless. It's a homeless hustle for them. Let me tell you why I say that. During the time we had Tent City, 30 police runs. During the time they run Motels for Now, 300 police runs. Letters from businesses saying that we're frightened. We close our business early. Did they listen? Did they care? No, it's not in their neighborhood, and we get paid. Now, I want to. So at the meeting, and in this, at the meeting there was an exchange, and you really need to see this. There was an exchange between Mike Hammond, the county auditor, and myself. And keep in mind, as I was up at the privilege of the floor. So I had 3 minutes, and I was asked some question by the county councilman. Mike Hammond's not a county councilman. At one point, he asked me, he's not sitting on the dais with the 9 county councilmen. At what point he asked me, so, you put them in tents. He made the statement that you put them in tents, I put them in a housing motel program. I mean, if you watch my reaction, I just thought, I don't even know how to respond to that. If you remember, I started off by saying since 2013, for 8 years, my wife and I, on our own dime, with help from churches and private individuals and business, had housed inside the church 127 people. We have and handed out clothing, food, and helped people get jobs and permanent housing. We even, when we had so many people in the church and we didn't have space, we housed members of the invisible community in our own personal residence. We also, from December of 2018 to April of 2019, served over 4,500 hot meals. And I can't tell you how many times that we would go on Facebook and a post that one of the members of the invisible community, Alex was one, that we were able to get him new gym shoes or boots or coats or whatever. And then, of course, we responded to a phone call from 3 activists in May of 2020 saying, would you help us? For Mike Hammond to say, I put them in tents, I don't even know. I didn't even know. I mean, that's the most idiotic thing that I heard. But apparently he had a God complex, and he just completely ignored. I never saw him at Tent City one day. And that's what I said, what did you do? You know, and his response was, I brought water on the weekends. Well, you know, I mean, and that wasn't to Tent City. He never visited Tent City at Doulos. Is when we closed Tent City and these people were out on the tarmac at the former Bureau of Motor Vehicle building in tents without any facilities, none. Everybody knew that we were closing this, our Tent City, after 61 days because of the neighborhood complaint, right? I'm trying to be a good neighbor, so they all left. The ones we couldn't, we reduced it down to 14 tents. The ones that we couldn't get jobbed or housed went across the street, right? Well, what does Mike Hammond do? He brings them bottled water on the weekends, right? I mean, this is the type of lunacy. But you have to remember that Mike Hammond is a term limit. So this is his last term. He's trying to hustle for a job, you know, making money off the homeless. And I suggest you watch the county council meeting. At one point, he comes from behind the section where he sits in front of the county council, and he talks about how emotional, and he tears up. He says, well, here's a problem, okay? Before Doulos Chapel Tent City for 61 days, they were at Monroe in Michigan. Did he find a place for them? Before they were at Monroe in Michigan, they were under the bridge on Main Street. Did he find a place for them? Before that, they were on Tutt Street. In other words, I never put them in tents. All during that time, my wife and I are trying to house these people in the church. And he said, well, you know, I put them in these motels. Well, okay, yeah, you gave Sheila McCarthy $1.3 million. And you're proud of that? Is that what your religion as a Catholic tells you is a good work of Christ? I mean, folks, I have tons of friends that are Catholics. In fact, Bishop Darcy, when I was on the Holy Cross Elementary School board, I was the only Protestant. And we had a chance to meet with Bishop Darcy over some issues within the church, within the school. And Bishop Darcy, who's gone to be with the Lord now, is one of my personal heroes. He was a strong man of God. Well, you know, he's not here, and you got Bishop Kevin Rhodes, who can't find a way to address Catholics who are hustling the homeless. I don't understand this. I don't understand. I would, if these were atheists, I'd get it. But these are people that profess a love for the Lord, and they care about the beloved community. Well, it seems to me they care more about their neighborhood and about their pocket, because that's what's going on here. They are pimps, cloaking themselves in Jesus for $1. They couldn't care. Because when I said, and you got to watch the video of the, it's like a 5-hour meeting, so you probably need to go to about the 2-hour when they ask for supporters, and then I remonstrate. But you need to hear, before you get to the remonstrators, you need to hear how they just lay it on. Well, if we can quote Dr. King, and it's the beloved community, and oh, we were terrified down the street from the church. There were these 30 police runs. Our kids couldn't play outside. What about the west side where this is located at? This whole Motels for S program is on the west side. Poor white and working class and black people occupy the west side. They don't count. 360 police runs. Don't you think they're afraid? But you're not acknowledging that. You quote Dr. King and you quote Jesus and the beloved community and all that malarkey. But in reality, you guys are just pimps and you're just hustling the homeless for $1. I can't say that enough. No, I'm not going to convict them and make them feel guilty because they apparently don't have a conscience. The same people that complained about the 30 police runs now have been responsible for 360. And how many? The commissioner, Derek Dieter, went to 21 businesses and they all signed a petition declaring they were scared to death to operate in this area. And they had to close their doors early. This was made known to the county council. Yet 6 of the 9 county council members voted to give Sheila McCarthy, who threw pee and poop on this homeless lady, Tanya Herman's personal property, and to this day has yet to apologize to her. Imagine if Tanya was your daughter, your granddaughter, your sister, your wife. This happened May 17th, 2019. 2 years later, she has not received an apology from Sheila McCarthy, who operates the Motels for Now program to help the homeless, which is also staffed by Tracy Lilliard, who made a false police report against Doulos Chapel that we had a meth lab. That's the kind of people that your tax money went to, $1.3 million. $1.3 million to people who profess a love for Christ, but in reality are just hypocrites. There's going to be Councilman Henry Davis, if you want to write this down, is holding a town hall meeting to address, among other issues, this issue. It's titled The Other Side of the River. It's going to be held at WUBS radio station at 702 Lincoln Way West on Tuesday, September 28th from 6 to 8, because there seems to be a tale of two cities here. A privileged area where the Catholic workers and Lady of the Road volunteers live down the street from the church, that allows them to say we're scared over 30 police runs, but to ignore the 360 police runs that they cause. I'd ask you to show up. I'd ask you to write the county council about reversing this decision. This is an insult. This is not of Christ. And this is nothing more than just a so-called Christian organization pimping Christ. As we close, I thank you for tuning in. I pray God will touch your hearts. If we as Christians don't stand up, who will? May God bless you. I pray that you get a clearer understanding of where your tax money is going. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Bye.
I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine